Hello everyone, hello, welcome to what is going to be, I guess, a review video, my thoughts on Final Fantasy VII Remake, now that I've finished it, now that I've finally finished it after, I think I logged 63 hours in total, not including all the optional stuff that's been unlocked now that we've finished the game, hard mode, some extra combat arena stuff, kind of crazy. I play games pretty slowly. If you watch my playthrough, you'll know that I do like to take my time. But still, I did not expect to get as much out of that game as I did. I'm gonna go through, try and give my thoughts as best I can. I'm really not used to doing reviews. I guess this is what this is. It's gonna be a little bit by the seat of my pants kind of thing. I've done some, vague notes just to make sure I kind of hit all my points that I want to make, but it really is going to be something new for me, so please be kind, bear with me. I will try and be as concise and clear as I can be, and this is just my initial thoughts. I finished it 2 days ago, and I felt I needed to process it a little bit, because especially the ending was insanely, full on. There was a lot happening in a very short space of time, and I kind of felt I needed to really think about it a little bit, ruminate on it. I spoke with a few of my friends who had also finished the game and had their thoughts on what the ending means and where they think the game's going to go from here, so maybe I'll touch on that a little bit. I won't get into too much detail on plot. Obviously, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review because it's, I have to talk about certain things, but I don't want to get bogged down in theories and, all the deep diving that people have already done at this point. I mean, I am quite late to the party now. Like I said, it took me forever to finish this game, and I'm glad it did, but I think most of what's been said has already been said. So this is really, I don't know, I just feel like a few people want me to do this, and I will definitely try my best to convey to you how I feel about the game. So I guess we'll start off with the graphics. I mean, Final Fantasy VII, the original, hasn't aged particularly well with regards to its visuals. I still love it. I have a lot of nostalgia for it, not as much as other Final Fantasies. I mean, Final Fantasy VII is by no means my favorite. I think it has, for me, a lot of problems. It is by no means a perfect game, but I still don't believe it's overrated because of its impact. It kind of changed the game in a lot of ways, The first massive hit for a JRPG over in the West, pretty much. Unfortunately, I wasn't, even though I was alive, I was 6 years old, and I did not play FF7 until about 4 years later. So I don't remember how much of a splash it made, but from all accounts, it's a big deal, and to this day, its influence is massive, so I don't really buy into when people say it's overrated. I mean, for them, fair enough. If you don't like it, that's fine. I absolutely love that game, but visually it definitely has aged probably the worst in the whole series. I still think Final Fantasy VI, V, well, apart from the original NES games, I guess, they look better than FF7 does, in my mind. And so, obviously with how popular FF7 is, how much of a fan base it has, people have been asking for this remake for years. And that is no exaggeration. I'm kind of stating the obvious here, but it was a long time coming, and visually they did not disappoint. The characters looked incredible. I mean, you look back at Advent Children, which is not a film I'm a huge fan of, but visually at the time, 2006 I think it was, it came out, and seeing the characters as they were then was just mind-blowing, and this felt even better, you know? Like, the detail on the character models and the expressiveness on their faces now compared to, I mean, in the original, for fuck's sake, many of them didn't even have mouths, for, you know? They were made up of little fucking polygons, and oh, it was incredible seeing them recreated in this way, and almost, for me, that's worth the price of admission, just to see them. And let's not forget the world as well. Midgar looked incredible. And we saw so much more of it as well. I mean, not a massive amount more. Initially, when I heard that they were doing Midgar and it would be the whole game, I was expecting maybe we'd see more of the different sectors. And maybe that's one thing that I'm kind of like, I kind of wish they had done. We definitely saw more of the upper plate, which was so good. Seeing how the other half lived was amazing. We definitely saw these environments that we know very well, like War Market, fleshed out a lot more. So that was great. Maybe I would have liked to have seen other sectors, but at the same time, the story that they were telling, there was really no opportunity to do that without adding a lot of filler, and so I kind of understand why they didn't. But overall, visually, I was blown away, especially the Shinra building. That was incredible. Oh my god, that was such a pretty building. Oh my god. I do have a couple of gripes, though. There was significant amount, especially in certain areas like the slums, of some pretty low-res textures. And while it didn't really affect my enjoyment, it bugged me a little bit because of how big the game is, like just pure file size. And they were saying, you know, they created all these custom assets, and I kind of, it just irked me a little bit that there was some significantly worse looking things in the game than others. If it had all been kind of, if the good stuff hadn't looked quite as good and the bad stuff hadn't looked as bad, if it was more evened out, I probably wouldn't care. But it was just a huge contrast between some of the amazing visuals in the game and then the odd, like, ridiculously low res texture on a door or something. Very nitpicky here, super nitpicky, because overall it looked incredible. It really did. And I just can't wait to see what the next game is going to look like. Now that we're leaving Midgar, which was always an area that I kind of always wanted to get out of as quickly as possible. The open world itself is going to be much more colourful, and I really hope that we get to see a lot of it. But Midgar itself is such an iconic location. I think they did it justice for the most part. I was surprised to see so much daytime in Midgar, because from the original you always got the impression that it was just always dark, especially in the slums because of the huge plates. So it was actually really nice to see a little bit of, you know, it lit up a little bit, and just the view of the plate from below. Oh, I could stare at that for hours. It was gorgeous. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the visuals. Characters, I think I've already kind of touched on, but as far as their personality and performance goes, and the dialogue, just miles better. They were so fleshed out and so well performed. I mean, every character. I can't think of a single character that I didn't like. And that's not to say, like, there's some characters that obviously you're supposed to not like due to story reasons, but they were all done so well. Like, I mean, a highlight for me, I said it multiple times during my playthrough, Barrett. My god, he was perfect. And it's funny because there was a lot of, like, controversy over his voiceover from, like, the trailers and stuff. A lot of people were pissed. Said it was too over the top. And I'm sorry, but did you read the dialogue from the original? That's how Barrett always has been. If they had changed him to like tone him down, I would have been really disappointed. It wouldn't have felt like the same character. And the funny thing is, I didn't have a lot of love for Barrett in the original. Like, I liked him, and I rooted for him, but he never made a huge impact like other characters did for me. So seeing him portrayed so well and so funny, oh my god, he had me rolling with some of his lines, and the delivery as well was spot on. I'm so glad that they didn't like I said, tone it down. Barrett was unbelievably good, but all of them were. Like, even though we only saw Red for a little bit, I really like his voiceover and the things they did with him. You know, really playing on the fact that he is an animal at the end of the day and can do things that we can't. That was really cool. Some of the villains. Steffi, we saw a lot more of than we would have done if they had stayed to the original. And there's tons of story theories about him that I won't go into because they're kind of crazy, and I kind of want to wait until I see the rest of this series to really make up my mind on whether or not showing him so much so early was a good idea. I liked that every now and then he would just pop up, kind of like the Joker in The Dark Knight kind of thing, where suddenly he's there and you're like, oh shit, what's he gonna do? He didn't ever do that much until the end of the game, but he was still very intimidating. Much more intimidating than he was in the original for me anyway. And I just hope that they haven't blown their load too early on him, especially with the big fight with him at the end. I hope that that's, you know, not going to ruin the impact of later encounters. I guess we'll see. But the Shinra people, it was great seeing more of the president. Even though we didn't get that much more, he just seemed so evil. And Scarlet, Heidegger, we saw a lot more of him, which was really cool. Reeve, who I didn't expect to see any of, really, was a nice addition. Kind of, because otherwise Shinra would just be full of the worst shitheads ever. You've got to have someone to kind of balance it out a little bit, and I thought he was really a nice thing that they didn't have to do, but it shows that there are actual people in Shinra that do give a shit and aren't completely sinister and scheming. So, very interesting. Because Reeve is, I'm not going to spoil the original game, I'm sure many of you know his deal, but there's a character related to him that I've never been a fan of. I'm very curious to see how they go about portraying them in future installments, but so far, Reeve, I'm with him. But just little characters as well, the new cast that they introduced, like Leslie, Madam M, just little small people like Marl, I think her name was, you know, just people living in the slums. They just added to this world, they made it feel more alive, and that's one huge thing that I've got to commend the devs for, because they really did. Like the slums, there were so many people just walking around and so many things you could listen to, just little bits of dialogue that they didn't need to put in there, but they did, because it makes the world feel more real. And I'm glad they did. I'm glad they put in that extra effort, because it really paid off, at least for me. So character, the Dawn, that whole sequence, holy crap, they kind of really went there with it, and I'm glad they did. I'm glad they did, because that was, I think a lot of people were worried about that particular sequence, the whole war market thing, and it didn't disappoint. They didn't, kind of chicken out. They went for it as much as they could do, really, in good taste, I think. And the Dawn was just, extra creepy, and seeing much more of him as well, and his sort of story with Leslie, I thought was probably one of the best additions, story-wise, that they added. we can't talk about characters without discussing Avalanche, specifically Biggs, Jesse, and Wedge. Man, they were so much more fleshed out in this one. I loved them. I loved them so much, which made events later in the game even more traumatic, and I thought they nailed it. I'm surprised that they have changed the fate of some of those. We saw at the very end Biggs being alive still. We don't really know what happened to Wedge, but I assume he died, even though it wasn't particularly clear to me. I think a lot of people probably expect him to have died, which is strange if they're letting Biggs live after all this, and there is a hint that maybe Jesse is alive as well. I don't know about that. I guess we'll wait and see. I don't like to speculate too much because that can get your hopes up, and I don't want to be like, oh, Jesse's alive because I loved her so much, and then we get to the next game and it's like, no, she's not. Then I would be like, oh. But hey, it's great that I could get invested in these characters. Because in the original, Biggs, Jesse, and Wedge, there's really not much to them. You know, yeah, you're gutted that they die, but you're not like crying over them. And boy, did I freaking tear up a little bit. It was pretty brutal. But that speaks volumes for the game. It really got me invested, so props to them. I'm going to talk a little bit about the combat, which I think is apart from maybe certain story elements, is probably the most divisive aspect of this game. For a lot of people, obviously the original is turn-based, well, you know, as much as it can be with the active time battle system. And while I love the original, I was very much open to a more modern combat system. I really enjoyed it. I really found it a lot of fun and surprisingly strategic, especially in the boss fights, which, oh my god, can we just take a moment to appreciate how fucking good the boss fights were? Like, every single one of them felt like I don't know, just the stakes were so high and so difficult. Like, you really had to kind of tough it out sometimes and really try and come up with a strategy, which obviously sometimes I kind of fail to do on the fly, because things can be quite hectic, and I understand people maybe not enjoying that aspect of it, because in the original, obviously, it's a much slower pace. Even with the tactical mode, which was a really nice addition, by the way. I'm so glad they added that, because that saved my ass so many times. Just being able to slow everything down and just think a little bit. The combat was still much more fast-paced and pretty hectic at times. Especially, my god, that last chapter. Those fights were unbelievable in how fast and just aggressive the enemies were. Which definitely, I don't think I dealt with very well, but I got through it. God knows what hard mode is going to be like, though. Holy shit. Yeah, the combat, I can definitely understand for anyone who really... They're not into action RPGs. I myself have played a lot over the years. I really like both. I like turn-based and action. As long as it's done well, you know. Just because a game is turn-based doesn't mean I'll like it, you know. There's a lot of room for, you know, variation, but I really liked this combat. The only thing I would say is it was kind of, the camera wasn't always the best. Definitely not perfect, especially in closed spaces. In closed spaces, the camera could freak out a little bit, and that was mitigated slightly by, you know, intelligent use of the lock-on. You know, you shouldn't always lock on to enemies. And, you know, it took some getting used to. It definitely did. And I completely understand if people were put off by that combat system. Luckily for me, I really enjoyed it. And I can't wait to play more of the game. Try and get my characters to max level, do some of the optional stuff that's been unlocked. But, yeah, I mean, there's not much else I can really complain about with the combat. It was way more strategic than I anticipated. I mean, the first boss, the Scorpion Sentinel, that was kicking people's asses. You know, it had a lot of really cool mechanics, like using environment cover, you know, the stagger and pressure mechanic I actually really liked. Kind of felt a little bit like Final Fantasy 13 in that respect, which, you know, I know a lot of people don't like, but I really do. So the combat for me was damn good. Was really, really fun and always engaging. Like, in the original, I mean, for a lot of the opening of Midgar, all you need to do is just press X and you'll win, you know? And this combat system, you could not do that. You had to actively think about things, you know, dodge, swap characters at the right time. The materia system was pretty much exactly the same as the original, but with a lot of new materia, which was really cool. There was just so much choice. It was kind of overwhelming, and I'm sure I could play through the game again, use completely different materia setups, and have a very different experience. And that's fantastic. I love that. The materia system has always been one of my favorites in the series. Glad they didn't really tweak it too much. You know, they just applied it to this combat system, and I think it worked. I really do. I loved all the skill additions. Some of them were absolutely badass. A lot of clouds like Triple Slash and Tifa. Oh my god, Tifa. Can we talk about Tifa for a little bit? Jesus, wept. Oh, she was so fun to use. Like, definitely the hardest to use, but so fun, so fast, just athletic. I mean, Tifa is waifu. I love Tifa. Although, Aerith, even though I wasn't a big fan of her in the original, I gotta say, I'm in love. She is amazing. They did such a good job with her. I can't say enough good things about her. Absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, the combat was great. I have very few criticisms of it. The music, oh my god, the music was so good. The original tracks were given some new life. They sounded great. There was an instance, like, I kind of wish that they had the original, they used the original track for War Market a little bit. That piece of music that was used instead, while still very fitting, didn't give me that War Market feel as much. But other than that, I have no complaints about the soundtrack. I mean, I listen to it so often. I'm glad also that they didn't go fully like orchestral or fully electronic, because I like both, and I'm glad that they kind of mixed those together, especially in like the Airbuster theme, which, oh my god, is so badass. I can't get over how fucking epic that music is. But they had some, you know, electric guitar in there, and they had the strings. It was everything I wanted it to be. No complaints about the music whatsoever. I even liked a lot of the... I liked a lot of the new tracks. Some of them were super catchy, and none of them really kind of... I wasn't really disappointed with any of them, honestly. So, big props to the music. I think that's one thing most people will probably love about this game, is the music. If you don't like the game, get the soundtrack. You'll love it. And I guess we come to the thing that I was kind of conflicted about the most, which is the story. For most of the game, I was absolutely, you know, I mean, it was basically the original with little tweaks, and I loved the little tweaks because they kind of kept me on my toes a little bit. You know, they didn't do it beat by beat. There was some nice additions, like with Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, the whole mission, while, you know, didn't change the story that much. It was nice to see more of Midgar, see more of their lives, get more of their motivations, which was good too, especially with Jesse, her family. That was really nice. The biggest thing I think a lot of people are probably are gonna take some like convincing with is the whole Whispers thing, the Arbiters of Fate, whatever you want to call them. this is the plot point that has taken me the most thinking about to really see where I am with it, kind of thing. When I finished the game, I'll be honest, I was kind of confused a little bit. I wasn't sure what had really happened or what the point of it was. And again, I don't want to go into details because there's videos out there by so much, better explainers than me. I can't even talk, right? See? That will go into the theories and the reasons for certain things in the plot. And while a lot of them are theories, I think some of them are probably true. But the Whispers being the keepers of the original timeline, they, for the most part, would make sure that things happened like they did in the original. And I think that's actually kind of cool. I think that's pretty clever for a remake to have that kind of plot point, which kind of justifies... I don't really know how to describe it, but it was kind of clever, and I was definitely interested in learning more about them. The fact that they would intervene at certain points when things were about to go a little bit different, and then they just pull it back. I thought that was really clever. I still didn't know why they were doing it, but it was still cool to see. And it was really only towards the very end where that kind of shit got really crazy and really did confuse me. I've spoken, like I said, with a few friends of mine who have played it, and they gave me their take on it, which really did help me kind of understand it better, so that was nice. I don't know if people new to Final Fantasy VII, this is like the first time they're playing it, if they are gonna be so fucking confused by it all, or if it's actually easier on them. Maybe because I've played the original, maybe I'm more confused because of they're adding so much to the world with these Whispers. So I don't know. I was a little bit conflicted on the very end. But the basic gist, from what I can tell, is the Whispers obviously are destiny. They know what is supposed to happen. It's almost as if the original game has already happened, which in real life it has, kind of. This is where it gets a little bit meta and a little bit crazy. And so they know everything, they try and keep things on track. It seems to me like Sephiroth and Aerith, because they are part ancient, they can hear the planet and hear the Whispers, and when they touch them, they are told the plot of the original game. So they know, Sephi knows that eventually, spoilers, he gets defeated. And Aerith learns other things. I don't want to spoil too much, even though I think everyone knows what happens to her. But anyway, so they know, and they are, well, Sephi at least, is actively trying to change things, and I think he's powerful enough to really be immune to the Whispers. Like, he could seemingly do whatever he wanted, whereas the party were kind of constrained by the Whispers. So I think that was the whole point of that last sequence, was defeating the Whispers so that the party's now free to do what they need to do, and kind of be on level terms with Sephi as much as they can be. That was my takeaway after talking to people and kind of thinking about it for a while. Which, if that is the case, I think that's fine. I have a little bit of a problem with how they conveyed that. I think it was not that clear. Which, things don't need to be that clear. I don't expect everything to be, given to me on a plate, and explained every step of the way. But I just thought everything got so over the top towards the end that I was just like, what is going on? I've had time now to think about it, and I'm definitely open-minded about where they're going to take this. I mean, that's the thing. Once I know what happens in the rest of this story, that will really give me good context for how the first part has played out, and how, if in the end, was it worth doing? Was it pointless? We'll see. but I think I gotta commend them for trying something kind of ballsy with the story, and adding a huge new element like this that kind of boggles my mind a little bit, and I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of that. You know, the people that like to really look into things deeply and read between the lines, I think they're going to get so much more out of this game than someone who's just like, but why are they doing that? What's that for? Why? Which was kind of like I was at the very end of the game. I was just like, what the fuck just happened, right? But I've had time to just really think about it, and I'm definitely more on board than I was. But that's really... Again, I don't want to go into too much detail, because we could talk for hours about this, and I'm sure a lot of you have your theories. But overall, the story, I mean, it did stick to the original. There was a lot of great moments recreated amazingly well, like, you know, the motorcycle chase, the whole infiltrating of Shinra, while tweaked a little bit, was really cool. Seeing more of Hojo was nice, because he is so integral to the plot of Final Fantasy VII. Seeing more of what makes him tick, and just really having more of an excuse to want to stop him this early was great. I loved all the Hojo stuff. I really do, and he was played really well. Like, you really don't like the guy, and you're not supposed to. But, I mean, what I gotta say is, I guess I'll sign off with, I loved this game. This game gave me so much, very rarely didn't meet my expectations, and more often than not, exceeded them. And I cannot wait for part 2, whenever that's gonna be. Who knows? Hopefully we won't be waiting another 5 years. I don't think we will be. They have a lot of, you know, assets in place now. It's just creating new areas, I guess, and I just hope they know what they're doing. I hope they know what they're doing with the story. I don't want them to just make it up as they go along, because FF7's original story, for me, is quite convoluted and not the best at times. So I really hope that they kind of have a clear goal with what they want to do. It seems like they do. It definitely seems that way. I just really hope that it doesn't all fall to pieces after such a great, strong initial first installment. But I guess we'll see. But yeah, I've been rambling for over half an hour now, so I'm gonna call it quits. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. I'm really not used to doing review my thoughts videos. I probably just waffled on and didn't make much sense, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear your theories, your what you thought of the game. Did you enjoy it? Did certain bits not really do anything for you? Like I said, I've spoken to some people that just don't like the more actiony combat, and that's fine. That's fine. I do totally get that, but I'm just glad I enjoyed it, because this would have been a huge disappointment. A huge disappointment if I hadn't liked, you know, the meat of the game, which is the combat, because, you know, you do so much of it. I will say, though, I would have liked more opportunities to grind. Grinding in this game was kind of difficult. I never really did it, in fact, until the very end of the game. So I would have liked maybe a little bit more freedom at times to do that. But other than that, I don't have any more criticisms. If I was to give it a score out of 10, I would probably, I don't know, I'd give it a 9, I'd say. A 9 out of 10. It's definitely not perfect. And even if I gave it a 10, that doesn't mean a game's perfect, because no game is perfect. But yeah, I think just little things like the camera, some of the muddy textures, some of the story elements not being super clear, but again, maybe that will be cleared up in other games as well. They do take the score down a little bit, but overall, I mean, what a phenomenal game. And I really hope you guys enjoyed my playthrough of it as well, if you watched that, because that was really nerve-wracking. Doing a game that means so much to people, especially doing it blind as well, kind of just going through and seeing what happens was pretty nerve-wracking, but I'm glad I did it. I'm really glad I did it. So hopefully those of you who did watch it enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I do intend on doing more videos on Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like I said, we've unlocked some new combat simulator fights. There are battle intels I still need to finish. And eventually I do want to attempt hard mode, but that'll probably be on streams. But I do think there will be more videos to come. I don't know when exactly, because I'll be honest as well, I was kind of like, when I'd finished it, because it's taken me a long time. It's taken me a long-ass time, like 86 videos. So maybe I'll have a little bit of a break, I don't know. But there will probably be more videos of it at some point, so maybe look forward to those. And that's the video. That's my review of Final Fantasy VII Remake, Part 1. Hope you enjoyed this. Please, again, let me know your thoughts, your comments. And I guess we'll all just wait for the next one, however long that will be. So thanks for watching, everyone. Please like the video if you've enjoyed this. Share it with anyone who you think might be interested in my opinion, which is probably not many, but heyo. And I hope to see you in the next video, whenever that'll be. So bye-bye for now, guys.
This is Snake, telling you to subscribe to Mage Masher 22 on YouTube and Twitch. Snake out.